But there are some concepts that I think are, you'll point that over there, that I'm going to talk to that here in a minute. There are some concepts that I think are really important for you as managers when you're in a project management role. So I want to point those out to you and make sure that you take those away and you're able to use those concepts. So last week we talked about team building and this whole Tuckman's team development model of forming, storming, norming, performing, and then in the fairly recent times he's added a journey. So does everybody understand something about that as a model? What did I say last week is the so what associated with this model and you sitting in a project manager's seat? What's the critical takeaway?
To know where you are.
To know where you are, why?
Because you know what they expect.
And why do I care that I know it's just a phase?
So you can explain to your team that it'll pass and when you can expect it to.
Yeah, this too shall pass. This is a normal part of developing a good team. This is a normal thing that happens when teams grow and become highly functioning organisms or organizations. So it's not about the fact that I understand that it's forming, storming, norming, performing, but it's that I understand that healthy teams go through a process of becoming a well-organized unit that can work through issues and can deal openly with one another. We understand our role and all of those kind of secondary things come with understanding that this is a process and that teams go through a process. So if I add people to the team or to my project team, would I expect that to have some kind of an impact on what's going on in this process? Okay, so you guys had answered the whole, is adding people to a team a good thing from a communications perspective, right? Remember that question? Yes. Then wouldn't this make a good question? Is adding people to a team, or how would you expect it to impact the development of your team or the effectiveness of your team? You see the issue I'm looking for there? If I'm in a project management role and I recognize this, and I recognize the potential communication issues, then it might impact how I organize my team or how I develop my team, right? Everybody okay with that? Let me say something about that question too. If a question says, is it a good thing for, or would you expect to, and it begs a yes or no answer, answer it yes or no, and then explain to me why you believe that. Right? Because I want to give you some credit, but if you just start off into this dissertation and you expect me to infer from your answer whether you believe yes or no, you're not going to get credit for the yes or no. I'm going to give you credit for the words that are there, but I want to know, no, it's not a good thing to add members. Not necessarily a good thing to add members to a team, and here's why that's the case. What?
I said the politic answer, we need to answer around.
Yeah, and some of you are really good at that. You gave me all kinds of really, really great words and expected me to determine whether you felt like it was or was not, right? It's a perfectly acceptable thing when you're discussing with your boss and you're trying to figure out whether he or she's on this side or that side while you decide where you are. On a test, you need to take a side, okay, and then give it to me. Okay, so that's the issue there. Second thing is, on the test, from an HR perspective, I want you to be able to talk or understand something about AMP and the pink situation. Understand, what's this represent? Yeah, hierarchy of needs. just understand something about what that is and how it works, and the fact that people can move up and down, right? We talked about that last week. This says the relationship between motivators and hygienes and the matrix organizational structure. Can you guys describe for me what I mean by that? Or do I need to talk about that again?
It was the salaries, the hygiene for to make it performance-based.
You're headed the right direction. Remember the matrix organizational structure, you have two bosses, right? What are they?
Mission and function.
The what?
Is it functional and
Functional manager and the project manager,
project?
right? So the functional manager controls which? Motivators or hygienes?
Hygienes,
Hygienes. The project manager controls
motivators.
motivators. So when it comes time to do performance assessments, in most organizations, who makes all those decisions?
Functional.
The functional manager. Now, in theory, we go get this input from the project manager, right? In theory. And hopefully that's what you're doing. But do you see the problem that causes? The person that really controls those things that motivate us, recognition, growth, the significance of the job itself, the importance of the job, opportunity, challenge, all of that. That's what really motivates us, but that's not who does the performance review. So the person that controls the kind of computer we have and the office we get put into and the state of the parking lot outside and how much money we make and whether I can work 410s or 980s, or right? Those things are all what? Hygienes. Now, who believes salary is a hygiene? I know you're going to say this on the test and you're not going to believe it, okay? But that's okay too. Salary is a hygiene for the test. Is salary a motivator?
No.
Okay. For the test, is salary? Thank you. What does Pink say about salary?
He says to start them out with a good base salary, and then don't give them like bonuses and stuff like that. 'Cause the problem then, when you start with bonuses, is that then it becomes expected whenever you do a job. So, but yeah, he says you have to remember when you first start out that you need to start them out at a good competitive rate.
Okay, so you're going to see this in the video too. But what she just said is what he believes, and he says it. I like the way he says it. You have to pay people enough to take money off the table. I have to believe I'm fairly compensated for the job I'm doing, that I'm being paid, reasonably well compared to the people that are doing the same job I do. Then that takes it off the table. And I know for some of us, I'm still not there. We believe that. Now, I am personally, but some of us aren't, and that's okay too. All right. The need, go ahead and move to this one. I'll come back to that. McClellan's need theory, he found two kinds of people, right? People with a need for what? Achievement, and people with a need for affiliation. The fact is, it's not that clear cut. We're not one or the other. We have both needs. But it is significant to think about, if I recognize that and I'm building a project team that's got to accomplish something really significant, where do I want to tend? Achievers. I want achievers. And a critical element of that discussion goes to the fact that organizations and even countries move in those directions, and the way we select people, the way we hire people, the way we train people can move people in one way or the other. And there are actually some tools for how do you develop groups of achievement-based people are achievement-oriented people, right? How do you move people down that direction? And surprise, surprise, or it wouldn't surprise you, I'm sure, that these things come into play. Recognition and opportunity for growth and challenges. You know, if you start treating people that way, then that's the way they're going to move. Okay? All right? So that something about that will be on the test. Then we said there's a third kind of a person with a what? Need for power. What's the significance about people who have a need for power?
That'll provide you a lot of usefulness, I guess, right? My opinion.
That's the point. That they have a need for power, irrespective of whether you get anything done or people like you at all. So the achievement and the affiliation thing, they just want to be in charge. They want to have the title. They want to be the boss. And when things go sideways and somebody's going to be held responsible, who's it going to be? Anybody but them, right? It's going to be, he said, she said, they didn't get their job done, and whatever. All right. And then the team building why, that's what we talked about a minute ago. All right. I skipped over theory X and theory Y because we didn't talk about that last week, and I want to talk about it today. McGregor's theory X and theory Y. A couple of things about this. These are two theories about the way people act and the way people are motivated. There is no such thing as a theory X person and a theory Y person. There's no such thing as a theory X organization and a theory Y organization. Everybody hear me say that? Now, I'm going to proceed by talking about theory X people and theory X organization, theory Y, as a shorthand. All right? And you will all do it. When you talk about it, you're going to say, well, that's a real theory X thing to say, or that's a real theory Y opportunity, right? But when you dig into this, if any of you ever decide to dig into this, you're not going to be able to say, well, Rodney Grubb said he was a theory X person or she was a theory Y person, all right? So that's all. That's really all CYA stuff. Theory X says that people have to be coerced into working. You have to manipulate them. You have to beg them. That in general, people are lazy. They don't want to work. They only do it because they're driven by some primitive need for food. And otherwise, if you don't watch them and you don't really pay close attention, they're going to go in their office and close the door and sleep all day. Okay? That's theory X. People don't want responsibility. They don't want to be held accountable. They are, for all intents and purposes, useless. All right? That's theory X. Now, theory Y says that working is as natural as sleeping and eating and breathing. People want to do something good. They want to be involved in something that's important. That people will do some things unsupervised without ever having to be told because they know that's what needs to be done. And if you will give people autonomy and some flexibility, they will figure out the answers to problems you haven't even asked. And they will do what's in the best interest of the organization just because it's a natural thing to do. They want to achieve. They want to be trusted. And they can be trusted. People want to do the right thing. Okay, now, in general, do you work in a theory X or a theory Y organization? You're not ever going to be quoted, and you're not on film or video right now, only I am.
Theory X. Theory X.
Theory Y, that's great. You must have a different kind of a manager. And those exist. They are not the norm. They're not the norm in government organizations. They're certainly not the norm in industrial organizations. Now, how do we know that? What kind of theory X, and I want to come back to your theory Y, but what kind of theory X activities do we see going on all the time?
Avoiding responsibility.
Talking about that sleeping?
Okay, that one, avoiding responsibility. Do you see people doing that? Okay.
Policies.
Policies. Give me an example of a policy.
You have to write down everything for everybody to do because they don't think they'll follow it on their own.
Okay, all right, so they have to be told explicitly, line by line by line, what to do.
Isn't that kind of how bargaining units are? I mean, they set up unions to define exactly what they're gonna do and not do.
So are you saying that unions are a Theory X organization in general? Okay.
I think that's the prime example of the theory of kind of how they work together because they don't have the autonomy or the ability to seek out other growth opportunities or whatever because they're only allowed.
Whoa. Are you saying that management drove us to these union problems?
No. I think.
No. You are, and
Yes,
that's
I am.
right. That is correct. The reason we have that broken system is because management drove us there, right? And now it depends on what you believe, right? Are people trustable and they'll do the right thing? Or do you have to control them down to the, here's your procedure, don't do anything that's not on that piece of paper?
Time card.
Time cards are the classic. Why do we have time cards? To hold them accountable, right? If you say, if I'm gonna pay you for 40 hours, by golly, you're gonna work for,
You're gonna at least be in the building.
you're gonna be in the building, right? That's exactly the point. If I know you're there from 8 to 5 for that 5 days, does that have any relationship to how much value you added to the company? I mean, you know, 2/3 of you are doing this, I haven't even finished answering the question, right?
Maybe in more of a factory type setting where they come and do the repetitive job. And so the performance is based on that. If they're there, they're doing the job. If they're not, then they're not doing the job.
Unless they found a hiding spot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so there is a
But
book.
it's noticeable, because you will start getting pileups if they're not doing it.
Gosh, I wish I could think of the name of this book, and it'll come to me in a minute. But there's a book about an auto worker who figured out a way that he could do, you know, that he wasn't loaded down enough. He didn't have enough to do because his work had become so repetitive and so, you know, put this over and watch the machine do it, then move it over here. Put this on there, watch the machine do it, and move it over here. Well, it becomes so repetitive, it was driving him crazy that he decided, you know what, I could do my job and yours. So what about if I come in the morning and I clock us both in? Now, this is not made up, this is absolutely the truth. And I'll do both of our jobs until noon. And then what happens?
And the other
Yeah, so I go to the bar, you come in, and in the afternoon, what does he do?
Clock them out.
Yeah, I'll do both of our jobs until I clock us both out. I'll think of the name of this book here in a few minutes, but it is really, really well done because eventually he gets to the point where he can do 3 jobs. Now, I'm not making this up. This is General Motors. And it is a real story of a guy who did this because we decided, I don't want you to do anything that's not right. And we drove this Theory X thinking to the extreme where, look, you're hiring really smart, really talented people, and you're telling them, don't do anything that I don't tell you to do. So what value are you getting out of that person?
What you want.
Very, very minimal. Because all you're getting is what little bit I know about your job. I'm going to tell you how to do your job, and you're going to do just that way. And that's where Theory X leads us. And that's why I stopped you, because what management pushed us this way.
Well, I'm saying they did it themselves. I wasn't saying management. I think the unions, by saying don't do anything else, they weren't. So management, union, their policy, however, who creates it, forces it, was doing it as well.
Well, and my belief is management, the way we manage those organizations, forced the unions to be like they are now.
Yeah.
And now it became a repetitive cycle, because when I get to the point where I'm really paying now 3 people to do this job that could obviously be done with one person because we figured out a way to make it happen, then we become uncompetitive and we can't sell our vehicles because the Japanese are doing it with robots and one guy. Right? Now, I understand that's super simplistic interpretation of what happened there, but my belief is management forced us down that path. And then it became, okay, you think that's bad, then the union says, watch this, I'll make it a little worse. And then management says, oh, you like it that way? Well, then have some of this. And the next thing you know, we're fighting among ourselves, and we're not competing with ourselves. We're competing with these other dozen car makers all over the world who have said, watch those idiots fight with one another while we take their customers. Okay? All right, so think about time cards, Theory X kind of an indicator. What other things are Theory X indicators? If you say, okay, if an organization does this, they're going to be a Theory X organization.
Well, our 9212 particularly, that's what I know, our con ops and ops managers live to that. And it's really interesting when you explain to them that as an engineer, I don't think that way. I don't live your con ops. I'm supposed to think, and so they don't like that.
No.
But con ops is that way. You do this, and here's how you're going to do it, and there's no other ways around it, right? And if you do something outside of that, then you have to go talk to them.
Or you get fired.
Yeah.
I know people who have gotten fired because they said, oh, here's a better way of doing this, but never got the procedure changed. Now,
It's all procedure based.
it is all procedure based, and that's very Theory X. Now, be very careful, because I am not going to say just go do whatever you think needs to be done and do it your own way, especially if you live in the nuclear world where you're running nuclear facilities. Then I absolutely believe in conduct of operations and procedures and right. And I hope this doesn't come across as 100% cover your CYA, but there are some real values in making sure we do things right and do things as they're 100% compliant. I'm just saying when we get to that stage, we lose a tremendous amount of the value that comes with hiring smart, creative people who are able to think of new ideas and deal with different paradigms. We're not going to get a paradigm shift out of a Theory X organization that's driven by rules and regulations. What happens to that organization is we eventually go out of business when the new technology comes along and we're still there making buggy whips. Yes?
I've seen this happen with a small company takeover with the last place I worked, where the large company came in and bought them, and eventually just forced everyone out because they brought in their more Theory X motive. I mean, they treated everybody like we were getting in trouble if we didn't do our timesheet by Friday, even though they didn't do the time balance till Monday, like threatening our jobs because of this. When it was silly. So you're all very, we had a flat structure which worked for the company, and then the next one came in and said, no, okay, we can't do that, we need this boss, and you can't do anything other than what you were hired for in the first place, that kind of thing.
Yeah, don't work outside your lane. That's a Theory X kind of a thing to say. If an organization is really flat and has minimal supervision, what does that say about the management theory at work there? Why is it theory Y?
Because they're trusting that they're gonna do their job.
Yeah.
Less oversight.
Less what?
Oversight.
Less oversight, because I trust that you know your job, you know how it needs to be done. I'm here if you need my help. But okay, so Theory X, Theory Y, right? That's the kind of discussion, and the question becomes, in a knowledge worker organization, which would you prefer to have? Why and why? Why?
You kind of taking the shackles off your workforce to actually make some changes. And you might get some unexpected things that are good out of it too.
That's your motivation.
That's where you want to get to. You're going to get some unexpected good stuff if you set free this creative, really smart group of people that you hire. So talk to me about Theory Y. When you said, I work in a Theory Y organization, what went through your mind? What are you thinking about?
More task-based, everybody has their role, don't concentrate on, concentrate more on the project and getting the job done. And your role in it affects someone else, so it's like, I gotta get my stuff done so that this other person.
Okay, so there's interdependence, we believe in one another, we trust one another, kind of a healthy team kind of environment.
Right.
There's a really good point. Where would you expect healthy teams to be easiest to develop? Why? Because I have. Oh, okay, boo. That was horrible. That was horrible, my bad. But yeah, in a Theory Y organization, because we trust one another, we kind of look out for one another, we're trying to do the right thing, okay?
I
Yeah.
work in Theory Y, I suppose, but because, like, for instance, I don't clock in and out. I don't have a time card. Like, I write down my own vacation time and turn it in at the end of the year, what days I took, and everybody on our team does. But what we've actually found is that, like, if I'm gonna be 30 minutes late, I just can come in late, stay late, don't have to necessarily keep track of the exact hours that I'm there, and they get more productivity out of our operations team having that set up than they do some of the other teams, just because the simplicity of, like, you don't stress about, like, if I need to go do something during my lunch, I leave, I come back, I get whatever done before, I get whatever done after, and it allows us also not having the confines of, like, if I see something that needs to be done, I don't have to go ask 50 people permission. I can figure out who I need to get resources from and formulate the plan to actually do it. So it lets me think outside of my normal box of, like, this is what you were sent to this machine to do, but this was the issue, so I can actually work on solving the actual issue.
So do you hear autonomy and trust and teamwork? Does anybody know who Gore-Tex is? I'm sorry, yeah, now I've told you, right? W.O. Gore is the company, they make Gore-Tex. And so they have this kind of environment. Development of that company is pretty interesting because he worked for the team that made Teflon. And so as they were doing that, he's kind of that kind of a scientist, and he understood the kind of things other things you might be able to do in that space. So he went to his boss and said, hey, I've got some ideas here. We developed this Teflon thing, and it's going really great, but here's some other ideas about things we might be able to do. And his boss told him what? Yeah, go sit down and shut up. We're making good money with Teflon, and so we don't need your kind of craziness, and we don't need to spend money on something else. So he did what every one of you all would do, right?
Took it somewhere.
What did he do?
Split off.
Quit.
He left. He quit, and he went and bought a couple of ranges, ovens, and put them in his basement, just like you would do. And he starts mixing up chemicals and starts making all kinds of crazy crap, right? Until he ends up developing several products, and it grows into Gore-Tex, which, do you know what Gore-Tex is?
Rain gear.
Yeah, the rain gear, it's the kind of the special, water will go one way, air will go in, liquid comes out, and so really, really cool product. But they are, for me, one of the ultimate Theory Y organizations, because when a person comes in and gets hired, the way they get on a team is they have to go around and find a team that was willing to take them and become a part of that team. And if you're working on a team and you're not carrying your weight, or you're not there, you're not doing what part you're supposed to be doing, the team can just eject you. Right? And then if you don't pick up another team,
You're fired.
too bad, you're gone. Right? But it's that kind of organization where, you talked about checking in, checking out, timekeeping, and vacations and those kind of things. Well, in this space, it's my job to make sure my team knows where I am, but I don't have to account to 4 layers of management or anybody. I am accountable to my team. And if my team needs me to be there in that window, I'm going to be there in that window. But if they don't, then I need to run out at lunch, or I need to, all right. Now, the ultimate of this is I can't name you an organization right now, but there are organizations right now that have said, we don't have vacation at all. 0. You take it whenever you want it, you take it whenever you need it. however much you need, whenever you need it. Now, what do you think about that as a policy?
I'd like to work there.
Bush Brothers, Knoxville, they have similar, they technically have 4 weeks vacation if they have a limited sick time.
So you use it, you'd like to work there, why?
Just, because it's just the freedom of it. I mean, not necessarily that I'd take off 6 months out of the year, but, you know, it's just knowing that you have it.
Yeah, know that you have that flexibility. It's you know, what's needed. So it's kind of like the ultimate theory why thing, right? Now, if my team decides that I'm not carrying my weight, guess what? I don't have a job to come back to. Right? Now, I understand that's an extreme. From a project management perspective, where does most of the world live in the project management world right now? Big time Theory X, right? Here's the schedule, here's the estimate, get it done, push, 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 push. So the question would become, is there value to having a Theory Y kind of organization in the project management world?
Yes.
I think it's funny that the place that most of us work out here were developed in a Theory Y environment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was 1940s where I can do it time, we trust their people to do this. They built incredible complexes and they had a huge mission in ending that war. And why do we think all of a sudden it's good to shift to Theory X? I mean, we're at the total opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And all we did under Theory Y,
And that's the norm.
so it only makes sense to go the other way.
Companies tend to become more and more bureaucratic and more Theory X as they get bigger and as they get older. That's what the data would say. Well, why is that? And we don't have to have that conversation right now about why. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say what? No.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because as they need more structure to maintain that assimilation.
They think they need more structure, right?
People think.
They believe they do. But now, there's also all the political things that are going on about building your organization. We reward people because the more people they have working for them, the more they make, the more important they are. So therefore, people are going to do what? They're going to build more organizations that are taller.
But you have limited resources.
And
So
so,
if everybody's sharing, it's that the theory of the commonality or whatever. If you're all picking from the common resources and not caring about sharing with each other, then you're not gonna have the resources for every single project. So you
Okay.
have to have some kind of overarching structure to say, okay, this project gets X amount of resources, this one gets this amount of resources. So I think that's where you have to have some structure, otherwise you will have nothing for everybody.
okay.
I've lost it. But it's going somewhere.
We'll have that conversation offline. Because you
Try to
start.
do the comments.
Yeah, tragedy of the commons. You started with an assumption, right, and let's don't go down that path because that's a longer conversation. But the thing I want you to think about is we know what our paradigm looks like right now. It's very rules oriented, very bureaucratic, very structured, and that's the world we live in, and we're living with a whole set of Theory X assumptions about our people. And that's got us where we are right now. And I'm saying to you, can you consider another paradigm? And you're saying, well, it's been tried before. Can you consider another paradigm where we have flexible organizational structures and we have Theory Y as a set of assumptions, and we begin to recognize that we're dealing with a workforce made up primarily of knowledge workers who want to do a good job, they want recognition, they want career growth, they want personal growth. So can we change something about the way we manage and be more effective with the way we do projects? That's the question that's on the table, and it's rhetorical for right now. Okay? All right.
Till the final comes.
Till the final, then it'll be real, yeah. You have several references for the kinds of power that I left this slide in because you need to look at this and look at what's in the Bach and look at what's in Kerzner about the kinds of power, and then be able to talk to, what kind of power is, let me say it better, what role in a project management context is represented by someone with expert power? Can you answer that one? In a project management context, you have all these different players. Who has expert power? SME, subject matter expert. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for here. Legitimate power based on the person's position in the organization, authorized by the project charter. Who are we thinking about there? The project manager. The project manager has a certain amount of power because of where he or she sits formally in that project. Okay, so something to think about. All right, let's watch the video you've been looking forward to.
Dark side of the moon. I should have had him play that or.
Yeah.
Oops. That's one of the
Backwards.
will we be able to hear this? Do we have to do anything special last
No, you
night?
just have to turn your laptops up.
How do I do that?
Scratch your microphone.
Down there in the right-hand corner, looks like a, no,
On
on
the
your,
screen.
on the screen.
Next
Oh.
to where your time is?
Yeah, it should be like a speaker.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. Just click on that and it's
Already
already
at
out of
100%.
here.
Is that 100%? Okay, here we go.
See how loud your laptop is.
Our motivations are unbelievably interesting.
Can you hear that?
I've been working on this for a few years, and I just find the topic still so amazingly engaging. and
Pause it for a second,
so I
Jeremy
wanna tell
might
you
put
about
that microphone on it.
Science
All right.
is really
Jeremy, you can
surprising.
turn it
The
around.
science is a little bit freaky, okay? It,
You may want to use the volume of like the
Yeah.
video by.
Yeah, you can check the speaker on the screen, it may not be up.
That one?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all.
no, it's all the way.
Okay.
Jared.
Oh. So we're gonna meet next week then? Class?
What's wrong with this thing?
Maybe we can. So by next week, we might have it. We gotta do the video. I think everything.
Hand it to her and make her
Look
sing
at
Rosa Cantina.
stuff she said. I think everything that you guys.
If you can't hear me, there
all
must be
need
something
that.
wrong with you. Well, actually,
About 8 layers of clothes.
I might just make it up.
On this shirt with this vest.
It's got
There's 2 layers.
And it was all rubbed
He's got the shirt, the vest, the jacket.
He never did figure out that connection.
All right.
The fact that he was rubbing his clothes together and that was what it was picking up on.
our motivations are unbelievably interesting. I mean, I've been working on this for a few years, and I just find the topic still so amazingly engaging and interesting. So I want to tell you about that. The science is really surprising. The science is a little bit freaky, okay? We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think. There's a whole set of unbelievably interesting studies. I want to give you 2 that call into question this idea that if you reward something, you get more of the behavior you want. If you punish something, you get less of it. So let's go from London to the mean streets of Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the northeastern part of the United States. And let's talk about a study done at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Here's what they did. They took a whole group of students and they gave them a set of challenges. Things like memorizing strings of digits, solving word puzzles, other kinds of spatial puzzles, even physical tasks like throwing a ball through a hoop. Okay, they gave them these challenges and they said to incentivize their performance, they gave them 3 levels of rewards. Okay? So if you did pretty well, you got a small monetary reward. If you did medium well, you got a medium monetary reward. And if you did really well, if you were one of the top performers, you got a large cash prize. Okay? We've seen this movie before. This is essentially a typical motivation scheme within organizations, right? We reward the very top performers, we ignore the low performers, and the other folks kind of in the middle. Okay, you get a little bit. So what happens? They do the test, they have these incentives. Here's what they found out. 1, as long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better their performance. Okay, that makes sense. But here's what happened. But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance. Now this is strange, right? A larger reward led to poorer performance? How can that possibly be? Now what's interesting about this is that these folks here who did this are all economists, two at MIT, one at the University of Chicago, one at Carnegie Mellon, okay? The top tier of the economics profession. And they're reaching this conclusion that seems contrary to what a lot of us learned in economics, which is that the higher the reward, the better their performance. And they're saying that once you get above rudimentary cognitive skill, it's the other way around. Which seems like this kind of, the idea that these rewards don't work that way seems vaguely left-wing and socialist, doesn't it? It's kind of this kind of weird socialist conspiracy. For those of you who have those conspiracy theories, I want to point out the notoriously left-wing socialist group that financed the research, the Federal Reserve Bank. So this is the mainstream of the mainstream coming to a conclusion that's quite surprising. It seems to defy the laws of behavioral physics. So this is strange. It's strange finding. So what do? They say, this is free. Let's go test it somewhere else. Maybe that $50, $60 prize isn't sufficiently motivating for an MIT student, right? So let's go to a place where $50 is actually more significant relative. Right? So they'll take the experiment. We're going to go to Madurai, India, rural India, where $50, $60, whatever the number was, is actually a significant sum of.
We'll pause for 1 second here because I want
What's
you
the
to.
what's the battery?
Yeah.
What's that?
I think they're double A.
Double A or triple A. I'm not
You
sure.
got all of them, you got these in there?
Battery factory?
I
Yeah.
need to know what size if I
I
had.
think they're double A.
1 double A.
And Murphy is alive and well.
I haven't used it all semester, and then it's like, oh, well,
All these people with batteries.
well, you know, wireless, wireless
He just
stuff.
robbed from Peter to pay Paul.
What?
12 way.
Do that a lot.
Too slow, Rocky.
I know.
They named right over wrong. We're generating theory X.
Money. So they replicated the experiment in India roughly as follows. Small rewards is the equivalent of 2 weeks salary. Small performance, low performance, 2 weeks salary. Medium performance, about a month's salary. High performance, about 2 months salary. Okay, so those are real good incentives. Okay, so you're going to get a different result here. Well, what happened though was that the people offered the medium reward did no better than the people offered the small reward. But this time around, the people offered the top reward, they did worst of all. Higher incentives led to worse performance. What's interesting about this is that it actually isn't all that anomalous. This has been replicated over and over and over again by psychologists, by some extent by sociologists, and by economists, over and over and over again. For simple, straightforward tasks, those kinds of incentives, if you do this, then you get that, they're great. For tasks that are algorithmic, set of rules where you have to just follow along and get a right answer, if then rewards, carrots and sticks, outstanding. But when the task gets more complicated, when it requires some conceptual, creative thinking, those kinds of motivators demonstrably don't work. In fact, money is a motivator at work, but in a slightly strange way. If you don't pay people enough, they won't be motivated. What's curious about, there's another paradox here, which is that the best use of money as a motivator is to pay people enough to take the issue of money off the table. Pay people enough so that they're not thinking about money, they're thinking about the work. Now, once you do that, it turns out there are 3 factors that the science shows lead to better performance. Not to mention personal satisfaction. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is our desire to be self-directed, to direct our own lives. Now, in many ways, traditional notions of management run afoul of that. Management is great if you want compliance, but if you want engagement, which is what we want in the workforce today as people are doing more complicated, sophisticated things, self-direction is better. Let me give you some examples of this, of almost radical forms of self-direction in the workplace that lead to good results. Let's start with this company right here, Atlassian, an Australian company. It's a software company, and they do something really cool. Once a quarter, on a Thursday afternoon, they say to their developers, for the next 24 hours, you can work on anything you want. You can work on it the way you want, you can work on it with whomever you want. All we ask is that you show the results to the company at the end of those 24 hours in this fun kind of meeting, not a star chamber session, but this fun meeting with beer and cake and fun and other things like that. It turns out that that one day of pure undiluted autonomy has led to a whole array of fixes for existing software, a whole array of ideas for new products that otherwise had never emerged. One day. Now this is not an if-then incentive. This is not the sort of thing that I would have done 3 years ago before I knew this research. I would have said, you want people to be creative and innovative? Give them a freaking innovation bonus. If you do something cool, I'll give you $2,500. They're not doing this at all. They're essentially saying, you probably want to do something interesting. Let me just get out of your way. One day of autonomy produces things that never emerged. Now let's talk about mastery. Mastery is our urge to get better at stuff. We like to get better at stuff. This is why people play musical instruments on the weekend. You have all these people who are acting in ways that seem irrational economically. They play musical instruments on weekends. Why? It's not going to get them a mate. It's not going to make them any money. Why are they doing it? Because it's fun. Because you get better at it, and that's satisfying. Go back in time a little bit. I imagine this if I went to my first economics professor, a woman named Mary Alice Schulman, and I went to her in 1983 and said, Professor Schulman, can I talk to you after class for a moment? Yeah. I got this inkling, I got this idea for a business model, I just want to run it past you. Here's how it would work. You get a bunch of people around the world who are doing highly skilled work, but they're willing to do it for free and volunteer their time, 20, sometimes 30 hours a week. Okay, she's looking at you somewhat skeptically there. Oh, but I'm not done. And then what they create, they give it away rather than sell it. It's going to be huge. I mean, she truly would have thought I was insane. Okay, it seemed to fly in the face of so many things. But what do you have? You have Linux powering 1 out of 4 corporate servers in Fortune 500 companies, Apache powering more than the majority of web servers, Wikipedia. What's going on? Why are people doing this? Why are these people, many of whom are technically sophisticated, highly skilled people who have jobs? Okay? They have jobs. They're working at jobs for pay, doing sophisticated technological work. And yet, during their limited discretionary time, they do equally, if not more, technically sophisticated work, not for their employer, but for someone else for free. That's a strange economic behavior. Economists who look into it, why are they doing this? It's overwhelmingly clear. Challenge and mastery, along with making a contribution. That's it. What you see more and more is a rise of what you might call the purpose motive. Is that more and more organizations want to have some kind of transcendent purpose. Partly because it makes coming to work better, partly because that's the way to get better talent. And what we're seeing now is, in some ways, when the profit motive becomes unmoored from the purpose motive, bad things happen. Bad things ethically sometimes, but also bad things just like not good stuff, like crappy products, like lame services, like uninspiring places to work. That when the profit motive is paramount, or when it becomes completely unhitched from the purpose motive, it's just, people don't do great things. More and more organizations are realizing this and sort of disturbing the categories between what's profit and what's purpose. And I think that actually heralds something interesting. And I think that the companies, organizations that are flourishing, whether they're profit, for profit, or somewhere in between, are animated by this purpose motive. Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's the founder of Skype. He says, our goal is to be disruptive, but in the cause of making the world a better place. Pretty good purpose. Here's Steve Jobs. Well, I want to put a ding in the universe. All right? That's the kind of thing that might get you up in the morning and racing to go to work. So I think that that we are purpose maximizers, not only profit maximizers. I think the science shows that we care about mastery very, very deeply. And the science shows that we want to be self-directed. And I think that the big takeaway here is that if we start treating people like people and not assuming that they're simply horses, slower, smaller, better smelling horses, if we get past this kind of ideology of carrots and sticks and look at the science, I think we can actually build organizations and work lives that make us better off, but I also think they have the promise to make our world just a little bit better.
Okay, reactions. Agree, disagree, hooey. It's okay to disagree now.
Postpone it. postpone it for more than 10 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have another one? You have
I
another one?
do. I think it's,
Chris will be here. He's on.
There's a show on HBO called, I think it's Silicon Valley, and it's about all these, I guess, programmers, I don't even know what they call them, but they have think tanks and where they live there, and, you know, basically they have a sponsor that just, they can do whatever they want to, and when they come up with something great, and they debug stuff, but it shows all the companies like, Google, everything, you know, that's within the valley, and you know, they're riding like these little bikes through there, and they got swimming pools and just all the perks that you would ever want in a job. But it's just anything to get the best in there.
and so, are the perks what make people want to work there? The bicycles, or the pools, or
No.
the lunchrooms?
No, it's really because they just like, well, they want to give them that creativity to, you know, expand, I guess, but they're there because they're trying to do what they're interested in, you know, making their own apps or, you know, things that they can actually work on.
And if I put that in the context of motivators and hygienes, I can think those things like the pool or the cafeteria or the bicycle and all that, motivators or hygienes. Those are all hygienes, right? So the lack of those would demotivate me, but the fact that they're there doesn't motivate me. What I'm motivated by is, oh, we're doing cool stuff on cool projects, and we're doing something that matters, that makes a difference. And I personally am growing professionally and growing personally. And so the ability to understand those two things as a manager would allow me to focus on the motivators. Does it say that hygienes are not important?
No.
Why are hygienes important?
You have to meet them first.
Yeah, I've got to meet them to get to zero, because hygienes can be very demotivating. If I'm in a cold office with 1950s era furniture and a Commodore 64 computer, right? Am I going to be demotivated? Yeah, I'm going to be pretty hacked off about that. But that's the concept to get our mind around is, even if I did all those things perfectly, how much motivation would that give me? Zero. Because it's still,